Pete Murray.
It's PM of PM. Welcome to Open House.
As part of 100 years of the BBC celebrations, we remind ourselves today about the astonishing, groundbreaking career of broadcaster and actor Pete Murray, OBE. We make no apologies for savouring the achievements of a man who was at the infancy of rock and roll and the forefront of popular music broadcasting. He was current and cool, known for his sharp suits and trademark quiff. In the mid-50s and fresh from Radio Luxembourg, Pete launched the first ever TV music show, 6-5 Special.
It's time to jive on the old 6-5.
He was a regular panellist on Jukebox Jury.
Good evening and welcome once again to another session of Jukebox Jury.
And...
Yes, it's number one. It's Top of the Pops.
Was among the first ever regular presenters of Top of the Pops when it began in 1964. He blazed a trail for DJs such as John Peel, Kenny Everett, Bob Harris, David Hamilton and even Tony Blackburn, with his unique blend of sophistication, generosity and fun. For 10 years, Pete made Radio 2 his home and would begin his daily show, Open House, with the memorable theme that you're hearing right now. With unerring ease, week after week, he managed to hit every chime whilst he interviewed the very best in every business, from Prime Ministers...
Thank you, very much looking forward to it. And thank you for calling me by my name.
...to prima donnas.
I cook about everything.
Yes.
I'm a very good cook.
Recently, Pete Murray opened his actual house to us. And for the next hour, I'll share with you his reactions to the interviews, the archive and music throughout his career spanning over 70 years. Plus his thoughts on today's most popular shows, including Eurovision and Strictly Come Dancing. After all, he is uniquely positioned to do so as he hosted both of them originally. And now, at 97 years old, he's done the lot. Welcome to Pete Murray, in his own words. Now, it seems fitting to begin with another of our legendary broadcasters and nonagenarians. In fact, he's one of the younger guys, coming in at just 96. It is Sir David Attenborough. He was a guest on Pete's Open House way back before he wowed us with Frozen Planet. The burning question of the day then, which is more daunting, an airport or a jungle?
I think the most uncomfortable times you actually spend on airports rather than out in the forest anyway. I mean, they're grisly times you've had as well as I
know more about airports than I do about jungles. That's the sort of thing I hasten about, and they're jungles than their own.
Oh, they're much worse.
Yeah.
Much worse.
Are they?
Oh, much.
Yeah. But the creepy crawly things, I must admit, that when I've been to Africa have frightened me more than the wild roaring lions or the herd of elephants.
I think that's quite true. I keep reading in all these books which tell you how to behave in the jungle. They all say, look inside your boots because there'll be a scorpion or something like that. Tip them out. And every time I put my boots on in the morning, I think, forgotten it again.
Apart from doing the interview with him, I didn't know David Attenborough well, but I knew Richard Attenborough, his brother, because we were students together at the Royal Academy.
And of course, that was Pete Murray now at the end there. This all leads us very nicely onto Pete's first love. He wanted to try his hand at acting, and on the advice of a family friend, turned up on the doorstep of the illustrious RADA, cheekily or perhaps naively asking for a coveted place at the Academy. We join Pete's story after he's charmed the receptionist into an on-the-spot, unheard-of interview with the principal. Here's his reaction.
He said, you know something? I'm going to take a chance on you. I'm going to let you join. So my poor mother had to gather up the money, and I did about 3 plays. And at the end of that, he called me in. And he said, Mr. Murray, I have to say one thing to you, that you have no future whatsoever as an actor. And I said to him, you said the same thing to 2 other actors. And he said, and who were they? I said, Charles Laughton and Vivian Lee. He said, you've got a bloody nerve. I'll give you one more term.
Red! Red! You go. Where shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
When I was 21, I played a lead on Broadway in a play called Power Without Glory. I'm afraid it had quite a bit of glory for me, but not for the play, and we didn't last more than, I think, about 6 months.
Now, after Pete Murray's stint on Broadway, his agent suggested he take the role of announcer and DJ on Radio Luxembourg.
For all that's worthwhile, your radio dial is on Radio Luxembourg.
This is Radio Luxembourg, the great 208, the ring-a-ding swinging station of the stars.
So I did an audition. It wasn't exactly the most exciting thing in the world, but at £15 a week in 1950, I could live in a small hotel and eat 3 meals a day. So I went there for the experience. And I liked it so much, I thought, well, I'll stay for another 3 months. I stayed for 5 years.
Put another nickel in the Nickelodeon. All I want is having you and music, music, music. I'd do anything for you, anything you'd want me to. All I want is kissing you and music, music, music. Closer, my dear, come closer. The nicest part of any melody is when you're dancing close to me. So put another nickel in the Nickelodeon. All I want is loving you and music, music, music.
Now, here's David Hamilton.
You have to remember that Pete was an actor, and so he loved doing funny voices. When he was at Luxembourg, he did an Irish request show with an Irish accent.
I did a programme called Irish Requests because we had a lot of listeners in Ireland, and I used to do it in a sort of pseudo-Irish voice. This is your own darling boy, Pete Murray here now. And I used to sing, if you're Irish, come into the parlour. And then I got lumbered with a programme called Cowboy's Lullaby. Now, what the heck I was going to do with that, because I just finished a programme of ordinary requests, and there I was, stuck as a cowboy. So I thought, well, I could hardly present that in my own voice, so I called myself Old Pedro, and I used to come on, and I used to do a, and then hit the gong, dong, like I'd spat and the gong had gone off.
Put another nickel in the Nickelodeon. All I want is having you and music, music, music. I'd do anything for you, anything you'd want me to. All I want is kissing you and music, music, music.
Howdy there, friends. This is Radio Luxembourg here. It's your old pal Pedro. Going to present you some really mighty fine Western music, friends. And hope you're going to enjoy it out there. It's really wonderful talking to you. And I used to get a heck of a lot of requests from the Americans saying it's wonderful to have somebody, an old-timer from back home. Well, at that time, I was 23 years of age.
You see, what they had with Pete, you had several different programs. It sounded like you had several different presenters. So if you're on a modest budget, as they probably were at Luxembourg in those days, with Pete, you got about half a dozen for the price of one. I mean, I remember Pete as one of the first disc jockeys in the 50s. It was actually a new job description at that time. We'd never heard of disc jockeys before. It's something that was imported from America. But as a boy, I used to listen to him on Radio Luxembourg. He had a wonderful voice and personality, and he was very funny. And, of course, with radio, you don't know what people look like, but I saw a picture of him one day in Fab 208, which was the Radio Luxembourg magazine. He was horse riding in the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, and always been a very handsome man. And I thought, what a glamorous job. I thought that's what I would like to do.
Pete Murray had found another path, and he was good at it.
It's time to jive on the old 6-5.
Of all the programmes that have ever been done on television, 6-5 Special was way ahead.
Where the deep pearly waters.
It was the first programme to actually incorporate the audience into the show, and that's what really made it quite exciting. Not only did it create the hits, it was of a much more varied style of music. You had every kind of music on there.
The Deep River Boy.
Hello, bless my soul, what's wrong with me? I miss you like a man on a fuzzy tree. My friends say I'm acting clear as a buck. I'm in love.
Yeah.
I'm all shook up. Well, my hands all shaky and my knees are weak. I can't seem to stand on my own 2 feet. Who do you thank when you have such luck? I'm in love.
Yeah.
I'm all shook up. Well, I'll please don't ask what's on my mind. I'm a little mixed up, but I'm feeling fine when I'm near that gal that I love best.
My heart beats so that it scares me to death.
Well, she touched my hand, what a chill I got. Her lips are like a volcano that's hot. I'm proud to say she's my buttercup. I'm in love.
Yeah.
I'm all shook up.
Yeah. Boy.
Yeah. Well, my tongue gets tied when I try to speak. My inside shakes like a leaf on a tree. There's only one cure for this body of mine.
To have that girl that I love so fine.
Well, she touched my hand, what a chill I got. Her lips are like a volcano that's hot. I'm proud to say she's my buttercup. I'm in love.
Yeah.
I'm all shook up.
Yeah. Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy.
Yeah. I'm all shook up.
Yes, it's Bob Harris here. Just thinking back over the very early days in the 1950s as I was just starting to get into rock and roll music. I was just going into my teens. It was 1957, and Pete Murray was on television on what was the first ever UK teen-based TV show. It was called 6-5 Special. He co-presented it with Josephine Douglas. It was as much a skiffle show as it was a rock and roll show. And looking back at it now, I suppose, with the benefit of hindsight, it looks a bit tame. But at the time, Pete Murray was a pioneer DJ. He was a DJ when there weren't really DJs. And I used to think he was fantastic. He had a quiff, he looked pretty cool.
Over the points, 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 over the points. The 6-5 Special streaming down the line. 6-5 Special right on time. Coal in the boiler, burning up bright. Rolling and a-rocking through the night. And my heart's a beating, 'cause I'll be meeting the 6-5 Special at the station tonight.
But the genius behind that, there were 2 producers, Josephine Douglas and Jack Good, 2 entirely different shows. Jack went for rock and roll, real rock and roll. Joe wanted to turn it into a middle of the road, didn't have the excitement, and eventually they dropped her. They kept her on as a co-host, and Jack Good took it to the height. Didn't last very long for me or him, because we went on a road show. He didn't get the permission to call it the 6-5 Special Road Show, and they sacked him. And I went with him, because they said, we're going to sack Joe Douglas as well. So I left with Jack and Joe. Jack and Joe and Jack.
The 6-5 Special better not be late. 6-5 Special platforming. Train starts a breaking, hard as can be. Station is a shaking like a tree. And I won't be missing that special kissing when the 6-5 Special brings my baby to me. Over the point, 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 over the point. When the 6-5 Special brings my baby to me.
Also on TV at the time, Jukebox Jury was essential viewing, hosted by Pete Murray's friend and sparring partner, David Jacobs.
Welcome to another session of Jukebox Jury. Thank you very much indeed. Let's meet the jury we have with us this session. First up, I'd like to introduce one of my very favourite singing stars who's just arrived from America, Miss Carmen McRae. Sitting next to her is an actor and disc jockey of note, only for me it's the wrong note, Mr. Pete Murray. Very good. A very strange hairstyle tonight.
Oh, blue angel, don't you cry, just because he said goodbye. No, don't cry. Oh, blue angel, have no fear, I'll brush away lonely teardrop. Well, love's precious flame just burned in vain, but you're not to blame. He thought love was a game. It's oh such a shame, but don't you cry, don't sigh. I'll tell you why. I'll never say goodbye. Blue angel, we'll have love so fine, magic moments divine. If you'll just say you're mine, I'll love you till the end of time. Don't you worry your pretty head, I'll never let you down. I'll always be around. Blue angels, blue
I have one word for that record too. Unfortunately, I can't use it. This is a record. I like this previous record, Only the Lonely, which went, of course, to #1. I think is still at #1. But I don't like this as a follow-up. But by virtue of the fact that it is a follow-up, it might well become it. What did you say about my hairstyle earlier?
It's a bit strange, isn't it?
Well, I can't do a thing with it, you know. That's all there is to it. I did try, believe me, I did try to get rid of it, but I'm delighted to say I couldn't. You know.
He's a very funny fella.
He was my best friend, David Jacob. Although I was extremely rude to him, and he was rude to me. We had a war.
What do you think, Pete? Well, I was watching the audience just now, and I think they've done remarkably well this evening, and I'd like to congratulate them. I think most of them have come here for songs of praise. Well, I mean, you think I was gone a bit if I said I liked it, wouldn't you, really? You'd be a bit what? I mean, do you like it, David? Let me put him on the top. Do you like that, David?
Shall I say that I don't dislike it?
No, you don't. You always were a creep. No, it's not my scene, but I can see it being a hit.
I'm Steve Wright, and you're listening to Pete Murray in his own words on BBC Sounds and Radio 2.
Pete Murray.
It's PM of PM. Welcome to Open House.
Tony Blackburn's always said very nice things about me.
Pete Murray was one of my favourite DJs, and he won't mind my saying so, but I was at school, and that's the first time I heard Pete. And he was on Radio Luxembourg, and I used to listen to him, and I loved his programmes. And he used to tell some really very, very strange jokes on the air, and I thought he was tremendous. And later on, when I met Pete Murray, I said to him, you know, I used to listen to you at school, and I modelled myself to a certain extent on those jokes you used to tell. And he said, you modelled yourself on me? You? I said, yes.
I said, that's the greatest insult I've ever had in my life.
Here's David Hamilton.
Pete was always a great prankster. You know, he was known for going to parties and playing pranks on people. He would say some of the stories now are apocryphal, but I think they are true. There was one story that I remember, it's quite outrageous really, but it was a friend of his, it might have been his agent actually. They were going to this party, they were outside the door of the house, and Pete said, it's a wild party there, everybody's naked and they've all taken their clothes off. So the other chap said, oh God, Pete said, well, you better get undressed, otherwise you're going to look really out of place. So this chap took all his clothes off, walked in, and everybody was inside there, dressed in dinner jackets and bow ties, and women in evening dress. Oh, it's a wicked jape. He probably will deny that, but I'm sure that he told me that story. Pete's told me so many funny stories. You know, he's had such a life.
When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown.
I was doing the Radio 1 breakfast show, and the red phone went. We had a little red phone in the studio, and that was always one that not many people knew about. But I picked the phone up, and I'd made a remark about being in the bath with Petula Clark. And so I picked the phone up, and I said, who's that? And I said, oh, this is Claude.
I said, I am the husband of Petula Clark. The insult Mr. Blackburn has made about my wife is the most disgusting thing I've ever heard in my life. I want a public apologize immediately over the radio. If you don't do this, I will take it to the newspaper. I will sue you.
And I said, oh, yeah, it was just a joke, Claude. He said, who is the head of Radio 1? I do not like this at all. And I said, well, we don't have to take it that far, do we? He said, yes, we do. And so I said, well, his name is Derek Chinnery, but I haven't got his number offhand. He said, I will find the number, and you will hear from me later. It ruined the last 10 minutes of my programme. I was really worried about it. And then the phone went again, and it was Pete Murray saying, got you. It was Pete who had picked up the phone. He'd been listening to my show, and that was it. He really was a prankster, Pete Murray. He got me on quite a few occasions, in fact.
Waiting for you tonight downtown. You're gonna be all right now. Downtown, so maybe I'll see you there. We can forget all our troubles, forget all our cares. So go downtown. Things will be great when you're downtown. Don't wait a minute more. Downtown, everything's waiting for you.
Now, the art of of the roast isn't a new thing. It goes back, in fact, to the mid-40s in New York, when the subject was French singer and actor Maurice Chevalier. Well, Pete was on the receiving end of the old roast. Back in the mid-70s, the roast master, Ken Dodd.
Your Excellencies, Grace, civic heads, civic arms, legs. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our grand roast. Tonight, we have a prime sirloin of British beef to baste. The popular morning broadcaster and wizard of the waves, Peter Murray, OBE. One boiled egg. As I stand here tonight, recovering from an attack of Jimmy Young's rissoles, what can I say about that gallant band of men and women who sit in front of their microphones day after day talking to themselves? The first thing we have to ask ourselves is, do we need disc jockeys? And the answer is yes. That is, provided we need all the other things like gout, lumbago and dandruff. A lot of you were surprised to hear that he celebrated his 50th birthday last year. I thought he was a lot older than that as well. Pete Murray, he's the one who says, in exactly 10 seconds, it'll be approximately 11:30. So it's only fair, ladies and gentlemen, to give a right of reply to the gentleman himself, Mr. Peter Murray, OBE.
You know, it's ironic, but all the speakers here tonight have been a guest on my radio show for the last time. And I really don't know why George Melly said such cutting things. After all, I played one of his records on Open House only the other day, but there was a fault in the sound system, George. I can hear your voice.
Now, the roles were reversed when Pete Murray appeared on Michael Parkinson's chat show to talk about his autobiography entitled One Day I'll Forget My Trousers.
So what's the significance of that title?
Well, as I say in the foreword, I had the book ghostwritten by Jeremy Hornsby,
Yes,
but I
I
read
know.
the foreword myself. Oh, he's no fool, this fella. And anybody that knows me will say, well, you mean he hasn't already? Because I forget everything. I mean, my poor wife, who I'm married to for her sins and mine as well, I've locked her in and I've lost my glasses. I've lost the keys to the car. If I were a professor, I'd be an absent-minded one. There's no question about it.
Are you equally absent-minded when you do your programme and things? Do you forget people's names and things, or get them wrong?
I had the worst moment I've ever had on Open House was with Burt Lancaster when he came on the programme. And there were so many photographers about, and I was a bit uptight because he was uptight. No pictures, no pictures. And when the music came to an end, the record came to an end, and I said, and now, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to introduce our guest this morning, Burt Bacharach.
Well, he was delighted.
No pictures, no interview.
David Hamilton cites another well-documented story about Pete's slight scattiness.
I'll tell you another story about Pete. When he was working at LBC, talking about him being a little bit vague, he signed off one night and he said goodbye, and there was another hour of the show to do. So he went over to the news. When it was time to go back, he'd left the building. Yeah, bye. I think he left at 12 and he was supposed to be on until 1. Anything he ever did like that was ever vague was always lovable, you know. Pete was always such a lovable character and wonderful company.
The biggest show on our telly at this time of the year is, of course, Strictly, but that wouldn't have happened without this. The original Come Dancing, a much more subdued affair, but nonetheless fiercely competitive, but without the celebrities. It was presented by a variety of people, including David Jacobs, Pete and Terry Wogan.
Good evening from the bandstand of the Lyceum here in London. We're going to see the 12 couples contesting the semi-finals of the United Kingdom Professional Modern Championships for 1976.
Well, as always on these occasions, I'm joined by someone who really knows what they're talking about as far as dancing is concerned. And tonight it's my very great pleasure to meet an old, young friend of yours and mine, Peggy Spencer. Peggy, welcome. Now, it's the professional competition, and we start off with the foxtrot, don't we?
Yes, Barry, the foxtrot is one of the 4 dances that the professionals qualify in: waltz, tango, foxtrot and quick step, to win the title of United Kingdom Professional Champions and the £1,000 that goes with it.
Which mustn't be forgotten, but there's more to it than the money, isn't there?
Oh yes, much more really, because the prestige of the title is a tremendous thing for a professional, and also the world representative is chosen from this competition.
And we'll see them at the Albert Hall later on in the year.
Yes, you will.
Here's Pete's thought about Strictly Now.
Don't watch it. I would. I like the dancing, but I can't stand the chat. And then all the judges, no, I can't take that.
Fair enough, Pete. Tell us what you really think. Now, the Eurovision Song Contest first appeared on our screens in 1956. In 1959, he hosted the UK heat.
The winners were Teddy Johnson, Pearl Carr, Sing Little Birdie.
Sing a song of love.
God, what an awful song that was. And after that, I did either the television or the radio. I gave way to the great Terry Wogan.
Well, of course, Terry Wogan gave way to Graham Norton, who'll present the extravaganza next year in Liverpool on behalf of the winners, Ukraine. It's going to be a huge affair. But does Pete feel it's changed for the better?
The Eurovision I knew, you had no help. You had to stand there and sing, either badly or well, to have a good song. A lot of good songs never made the top, never made it, but they later became hits.
Volare. Oh. Cantare. Oh. Nel blu dipinto di blu, felice di stare lassù, e volavo, volavo felice più in alto del sole ed ancora più su, mentre il mondo pian piano spariva lontano laggiù. Una musica dolce suonava soltanto per me. Cantare, oh, nel blu dipinto di blu, felice di stare lassù.
Now, did you know that Pete Murray was involved in the birth of the world's longest-running music show, Top of the Pops?
Long John Baldry. You know something? That gives me great personal satisfaction that John has done so well, because 2 years ago on this very show, John was in the audience, and I put him out of the audience and said, don't worry, John, one day you're going to make it. You're going to make it next year. So I was out a year, but he's made it, and made it in a big way, and couldn't happen to a nicer fella. Good luck to you, John. Right now we move on to our next record. It didn't make #1 in the charts, but it's still a beautiful record, and certainly one of my favourites. It's called Zabadak by one of my favourite groups, Dave D, Dozy, Beacon, Mick and Titch.
Zabadak,
I got to interview Pete Murray a couple of times, and, well, here he is. What do you remember about the early days of Top of the Pops?
I remember the fact that in those days they used to mime to their records, obviously.
Yeah.
We did it from Dickinson Road in Manchester. One thing they did my dressing up beautifully. I was smoking at the time, and I set it on fire, and they had the fire engines in. Burnt the place down. It was a terrible situation. I was so embarrassed, I can't tell you. They paid a fortune to have it all redecorated.
Were you in big trouble?
No, they were very nice about it. They just cancelled the fee.
Which wasn't much anyway.
No, peanuts.
But again, there you were in a trailblazing situation, a pop show that hitherto, I mean, there'd been, I suppose, 6-5 Special and a few other shows before that, maybe Ready, Steady, Go. Was that before Top of the Pops? But this was the first time, I suppose, the BBC had really gone for it big time.
Gone for it in the way that it was a hit parade. And people say to me, are you surprised that it's still going after 40 years and that there's a DVD celebrating it, the 40th anniversary? I said, no, I'm not surprised. I'm surprised in the first place that the BBC let it go on. I'm not surprised as a success, but the BBC never really wanted it, to be honest about it.
Why didn't they?
Oh, pop music, you're joking. In those days, they didn't want to know about that. It's disgusting. You know.
Really?
Oh, yes, disgusting.
Why do you think they did it then?
Johnny Stewart had a way with him. He got it on, and there's no question about it. Johnny was a very bright guy. He got it on, and he persuaded them, and after 6 weeks, they let it go on, and it went on and on and on. And, of course, it can't date, because the music is always current.
You know. What about Open House? Because that became a bit of a national institution, didn't it? Open
Yes,
House.
it did, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The precursor to that was, of course, the programme I used to do on a Saturday night, which was the first time the BBC had ever let anybody present a programme for longer than an hour. This one went on for 3 hours. First time that the programme had gone past midnight. Jerry Chinnery was my producer, and he said, we'll have guests in. And we had all massive big stars in. He started this whole thing as far as I was concerned.
Yes, on Radios 1 and 2, it's Pete Saturday People. And this is Pete Murray wishing you all, wherever you may be, a very good evening. We've got a swinging program lined up for your listening entertainment this evening. We're going to hope that you're going to stay tuned our way right up until midnight. And for your edification, Mr. Tom Jones.
When they begin, the beginning. It brings back the sound of music so tender. It brings back a night of tropical splendor. It brings back a memory evergreen. I'm with you once more under the stars. And down by the shore an orchestra's playing. And even the palms seem to be swaying. When they begin, the beginning. To live it again is past all endeavor. Except when that tune clutches my heart, and there we are, swearing to love forever, and promising never, never to part. What moments divine, what a rapture serene, till clouds came along to disperse the joy we had tasted. And now when I hear people curse the chance that was wasted, I know but too well what they mean. So don't let them begin to begin. Let them play. Let a love that was once a fire remain an ember. Let it sleep like a dead desire. I only remember.
I was a great friend of Harold Wilson when he was Prime Minister. He invited me to Downing Street to a party, and I had a programme on Radio 2 at the time called Pete's Party. And the first thing he said, Hello, Pete. I've been to a lot of your pastors every Saturday night I listen. It's about time you came to mine. Well, that was about the first of about 50 I went there, because we became friends.
Well, my guest in this part of the programme is the Prime Minister of Great Britain, the Right Honourable Margaret Thatcher. And that's the last time I'm going to mention the word Prime Minister on the programme, because this is a strictly apolitical interview, because I want to talk to you, Mrs. T, if I may call you,
that's much better.
about you as a person rather than as a politician. Firstly, may I wish you a very good evening and welcome to the programme.
Thank you. Very much looking forward to it. And thank you for calling me by my name. You know, I well remember when I was first a cabinet minister, which is quite a long time ago, I went into the department and I noticed they would always call me Secretary of State. And I said, no, you must call me Mrs. Thatcher. At least then I know you know my name.
Now, Pete Murray really did have superstars on his show Open House. It was revolutionary. I mean, how many people can claim to have interviewed the great American actor James Stewart about flying over to the UK on Concorde?
Yes, and we had a wonderful time. This was a tremendous experience for me. And also, my wife, Gloria, was thrilled. Gloria cried when we reached Mach 2. It's a very dramatic time after takeoff and after the climb. The Concorde is a Mach 2 airplane, and when we reached that at 57,000 feet over the Atlantic, there was applause. It was wonderful. Just as when we landed here in London, there was applause.
The original idea with Open House was it took the place of Housewife's Choice, and they always had different people doing Housewife's Choice. So the idea was to have somebody on with me so they could work with me. And Derek Chinnery, I have to say, said, I don't think that's a good idea. You do the programme and I'll have people on and you interview them. He said, and that way we could get like Americans to come and do it, like James Stewart, Gregory Peck. I mean, we had superstars.
Terry Wogan.
And in 1969, Open House was born, delivered by good old Nanny Murray.
Well, ring my chimes.
Now, I'm not going to start counting up all the guests Pete Murray's had in Open House over the years, but there's been a great number of them. Pete's always put them at the reeds. Several, indeed, have dozed off. There was one day in 1972, for instance, when he made Marlene Dietrich sound positively domesticated.
One of the great delights of your Marlene Dietrich is cooking, and in particular cooking for other people. Do you have a favourite dish?
No, I cook about everything.
Yes.
I'm a very good cook. And I love cooking.
If you were invited to somebody for dinner, what would be the dish that you would perhaps hope to get more than anything?
Hope to get to eat is Irish stew.
Irish stew?
Yes. I love everything that's cooked, that boiled together with vegetables and potatoes, and that's what I love.
Irish stew for Marlene Dietrich. Well, I'm afraid we can't serve that up for you at the moment.
See what the boys in the back room will have, and tell them I'm having the same. Go see what the boys in the back room will have, and give them the poison they name. And when I die, don't spend my money on flowers and my picture in a frame. Just see what the boys in the back room will have, and tell them I sighed, and tell them I cried, and tell them I died of the same. And when I die, don't buy a casket of silver with the candles all aflame. Just see what the boys in the back room will have, and tell them I sighed, and tell them I cried, and tell them I died of the same.
I'm Steve Wright, and you're listening to Pete Murray in his own words on BBC Sounds and Radio 2.
And I became a fan of his, David Hamilton, before he ever did a record programme. He used to be the continuity announcer for Thames. He was so good. and always made me smile. I thought, God, he'd make a wonderful broadcaster. So when I took a holiday on open house, I said, David Hamilton. I said he'd be absolutely ideal. And David never forgot that, and he never looked back.
BBC Radio 2, David Hamilton.
Pete was probably doing the lunchtime and then I was doing the afternoon. So they moved us around a bit. We made the most of the handovers. Because we got on so well, we had a lot of fun.
And if David Hamilton is listening, are you there, David?
Yes, I am, Pete.
May I ask you a very personal question, David?
Well, it depends on how personal that is, Pete.
How do you feel about you-know-who, TW, being number 28 in the hit parade?
28 in the hit parade?
He is.
What are you talking about?
He's 28 in the hit parade.
What with?
Floral dance.
David Hamilton.
The world's come to an end. Good afternoon, welcome to the show. Next one for the chart will be Pete Murray.
In the meantime, stand by for the one and only Little Diddy David Hamilton. How are you, David?
I'm very well indeed. I did enjoy listening to you speaking to Bonnie Langford there.
You did?
Actually. Yes, I did. And I must say, having heard her, I'm looking forward to being 16 as well.
Yes, it will be. That'll be a lovely time for us because we're going to have a very special celebration.
Are we?
Yes, we are indeed.
What are we going to do?
We're going to have your 16th birthday and 40 candles on the cake. Never mind about that.
Terrific. Yeah. Well, in the meantime, I shall just continue being the oldest teenager in the business.
You will indeed.
Now that Alan Freeman's going.
And what was his name again?
David Hamilton.
That's right.
Thank you, Pete Murray.
Good show to you.
A hard act to follow.
I must say we had great fun every day when we handed over to each other at Radio 2, and there is in existence a recording of a handover where Radio 2 was changing wavelengths and we sang the details. It was quite funny. It was certainly fun to do.
Things are changing, things are moving, and we hope that they're improving. In this letter, think we'd better get across the message that we'll soon be moving
tomorrow
on a weekday.
Hey,
in November.
Yeah.
And the 23rd is what you must remember.
Tomorrow.
It's a Thursday. That's the first day.
Yeah.
That our frequency and wavelengths change the numbers. Yeah. Radio 2 is moving house, and so we hope will you and you'll be listening when we move to medium wave of 433 and 330. We need you and sort of hope you like us too, and you'll be there to meet us when we move to medium wave of 433 and 330 tomorrow.
In a cutthroat business where, you know, dog eat dog in many cases, Pete has helped a lot of people, and I know that he put in a very good word for me with the controller of Radio 1 and Radio 2 for me to get a daily show. And Pete told me that he'd seen me announcing on Thames Television and saw my potential, and that's how he recommended me. And to be honest, how many people in the business would do that?
John Peel wrote to me, dear old John Peel, late lamented. He wrote to me when he was at Shrewsbury School. He wrote to me and asking me how to be a disc jockey. And of course, when he wrote to me, there wasn't any local radio.
No.
And he wouldn't have been right for the ships anyway. I said to him, the only way, and I'd still say this today, is to work for hospital radio. Learn your trade.
When I met him, he said, thank you for what you did. It was the best advice I ever had. Kenny Everett came up to my flat and I said, well, what are you doing? Got nothing. I said, look, I may not be much, but I'll put in a word. Now, I was recording at that time for Radio Luxembourg, but I was working for a Decca record company and the group, the whole group. And so I said to the pals that be there, you ought to use Kenny Everett. I said, he's the best broadcaster in the whole wide world. He was the king. Although his lasting time with Radio Luxembourg was quite short. He was on Jukebox Jury. He slated all the Decca records that were on. That didn't last long, but it didn't matter. By then, he was back in business.
I was going to start the programme, actually, by saying, now, where was I before I was so rudely interrupted? But I'm not going to say anything like that again. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Never be naughty, cuddle can. Keep it to yourself. If you want to say a naughty paragraph, it's not worth it just for a laugh. Better be careful, watch what you say. Auntie's not asleep.
Oh, no.
If you've got something naughty to say, cover with a bleep.
Now, you may have seen a classic photograph taken on the steps of All Souls Church, which is opposite Broadcasting House in London, featuring all of the original Radio 1 DJs to mark the station's launch in 1967. They're all there, including Tony Blackburn and Jimmy Young and Kenny Everett and Bob Holness and Terry Wogan, Ed Stewart, John Peel and, of course, Pete Murray.
They say all DJs never die. They just fade before the Greenwich time signal. Well, my last 4 guests tonight, they haven't faded yet. They're still good for a quick time check, a weather check, top 20 rundown, dedication for Tracy, and still play the next waxing without walking through the lyric. Looking on a day older, elderly ravers, all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Possibly not a day older, several years. Welcome, Pete Murray, Ed Stewart, Dave Cash, David Simons. Thank you for coming. Thank you. We're still being carried on Radio 1. Isn't that an honour?
Really?
Here we are on Radio 1,
I
Pete.
broadcast on Radio 1.
When was it last? But you were in that picture.
I was in that
There
picture,
you were.
but I didn't last very long on Radio 1. They put me on Radio 2 immediately, virtually.
They did the same with me about 2 years later, yeah.
As we've been hearing, without Pete Murray, there are so many shows, presenters and DJs that would never have made the airwaves here in the UK. He was quite simply a one-off, spearheading the world of popular music broadcasting and doing it with style, grace and humour. There are so many young broadcasters and DJs who enjoy handovers and interviews, all the tools of the trade that they might not realise is that they owe that debt of gratitude to Pete Murray OBE. Pete did it first.
When I left the pirate ships and joined Radio 1 and the BBC particularly, it was Pete Murray who was the loveliest guy. He was so friendly, and he came up to me and he said, "Would you like to be shown around the building?" And I said, "That would be lovely." And he was the one who showed me around the building, told me where everything was and all about the different people there. So I've always been indebted to Pete. He's always been a lovely man and really, really charming.
He's been part of the fabric of the BBC right through from the Light programme to his time on Radio 2.
And I have to say that Pete was my inspiration to come into radio. One of the lovely things about it was that in time, my hero became my friend. I don't know anybody who's ever had a bad word to say about Pete Murray. I've never heard anybody say anything nasty about him. That's quite an achievement after many, many years in a business like ours.
2 greatest honours I've had. One was being a guest on Morecambe and Wise at Christmas and being asked 6 weeks later to return. And nobody ever had that.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Pete Murray. Wonderful to have you on the show, Pete.
I can't tell you what a thrill it is for me to be playing the star part in your new film.
I'll think nothing of it, Pete.
Very marvellous.
If I was asked to sum up your many qualities in one word... that word would be...
Pathetic.
Hello! How are you?
Hi.
Nice to see you. Would you please get off? How dare you insult not only a personal friend of mine, but the star of my new film, Mr. Pete Murray.
He's not starring in your film, is he?
Yes, he is.
After what you said about him this morning?
Did I say anything about him this morning?
On the radio, we had the radio on Orton House. I said, "What do you think of Pete Murray?" You said, "Rotten." You did. He said you were rotten. He turned you off. He said you were rotten, Pete.
No, yeah.
On the radio,
he's
morning,
right.
He said you were rotten.
Yeah, yes, he's right. I said, yes, it was rotten. I said it was rotten that you were not on the radio more than you are. Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah. That was quick.
Yes, sir.
I'll give you 9 out of 10 for that one.
The other one, I was the very last person to do In Town Tonight.
What would Saturday night have been without this?
and I had to go to the top of Big Ben to say the last few words.
Do you know when the BBC first used Big Ben?
Yes, indeed. It was in November the 10th, 1940, and it was used for the 9 o'clock news.
And I believe it was used right up until about 1960, and it's still used on certain programmes.
Still used on certain programmes, yes.
So in a way, it's a great honour for me to be here
It
tonight.
is indeed. Yes, and I hope it's improved your lungs and your legs and that run up here tonight.
Well, I can tell you that my legs are like rubber, my heart is beating very fast, and I don't think my ears will ever be the same again. Apart from that, Tom Knox, I'd like to thank you most sincerely on behalf of everybody at the BBC for letting us on In Town tonight, talk to you and be here in this esteemed position looking over the beautiful London city with its gorgeous sunshine beaming right down on it.
Thank you, Pete.
Good luck to you.
I can't tell you, I'm still thinking about it today. How I ever climbed those stairs, I will never know. It took forever, but it was a great honour to be asked to do.
Carry on, London!
Well, in this year that the BBC marks 100 incredible years, Pete Murray is part of that legacy. You've been listening to Pete Murray in his own words. I've been Steve Wright. My thanks to producer Julie Newman. And I'll leave it to Pete's great friend David Hamilton to sum up how we all feel.
Amazing thing is that he's now 97. You know, a lot of it is the luck of the draw. I mean, his mother lived to a wonderful age. His mother lived to 100. And I'm hoping very much that Pete will. Of course, he can't now get a telegram from the Queen, but maybe he could get one from the King.
Thank you, Pete Murray. This is Radio 2 on the BBC Sounds app on your smart speaker and on 88 to 91 FM.